welcome to the Coaches Series on SSN 24/7. Today we have Michigan State men's golf head coach Casey Lubahn. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Now, you've been the head coach at Michigan State since 2011. You've helped guide the Spartans to tournament wins, top 5 finishes, and helped your golfers earn all-region honors. Before then, you spent 3 seasons at Miami of Ohio as the head coach of their golf program, and before that, you spent time as assistant coach at Michigan State. But let's rewind to the early 2000s, where you were actually a golfer at Michigan State, where you were a 3-year letter winner and 2003-2004 captain. So what brought you to Michigan State as a golfer in the early 2000s?
You know, my story's a lot different. Out of high school, I wasn't a great player. I was recruited by a few schools. One of those was Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. So I went there and went to Walkon to their team. Was there for a season, and then I transferred to Michigan State. I wasn't going to play golf anymore. I was actually interested in working in politics. Got involved in some of the campaigns during the 2000 election cycle, and that was really what I was going to do. But I kept playing golf because I liked it. And, one thing leads to another. You continue to compete, and I ended up playing actually a lot better at 19 and 20 than I was at 18. And so after a season of being in East Lansing, just being a student, the coach talked to me about coming out and joining the team for what would have been my third year of school. So I walked on the team at that point.
Quite the walk-on then, because you own the fifth lowest career stroke average at 75 at Michigan State. So how does that feel to be a walk-on and own a record?
Well, I think it's a testament to the coach I played for, a testament to the team I joined. It was something I was really proud of, just to compete in the Big Ten and compete at a place like Michigan State. But for me, I didn't ever. Those weren't aspirations. I wanted to be a starter. I wanted to play. I wanted to help the team win, and we were really in a breakthrough cycle at that point. And I think about it, I joined the team October 15th of 2001, I believe, and on October 25th of 2002, I was the number 1 player. So this game works that way. I think a lot of people have ability, a lot of people have talent. It's about catching it at the right time, and I was fortunate enough to kind of hit my stride there right as my career was ending.
Right after your career ended, you took a coaching job right away with Michigan State. What made you get into coaching right away after your playing career ended?
Yeah, I'd always thought that I would enter corporate America or enter the political arena and that use golf as an avenue to further my career, and obviously a lot of business meetings are held with golf. But my senior year, I was the only senior, and we had a little bit of a bump in the road that year, and the head coach at the time, who's my mentor and lifelong friend, he saw some things that he thought I could bring from a coaching standpoint. Assistant coaches were relatively new still. So he said, why don't you stick around and work on your master's degree and come coach a little bit. And, now looking back, it was more of a, hey, this is a fun way to stay involved until I decided what I really wanted to do. But I fell in love with it pretty quickly after that.
You've been the head coach since 2011. How much did it help you that you already had some coaching experience at Michigan State being an assistant coach when you were finally given the keys to the program?
Yeah, it's obviously when I got into coaching, it was pretty transparent that my dream was to be the head coach of Michigan State someday. And so I had started building some of those relationships as an assistant, as a player. So when Mark Hollis called and offered me the job, it was pretty easy to transition. I knew most of the key players around the program. I knew a lot of our alumni, I knew a lot of our supporters, knew a lot of recruits in the area. I'd actually recruited about half of that team. So I had one of the friendlier transitions, walking in on day one. I knew the 300 or so people I needed to touch base with, and I think that was part of the advantage I had in getting the job and part of the advantage I had in getting us off to a good start.
You'll be heading into your 5th season as the head coach for the upcoming season. What's the key to running a successful program, and also what's one of the more difficult aspects that maybe fans don't know about?
Yeah, I think the first part of that question, having a structure and a culture in place that everybody can buy into is obviously very important. We were lucky during my time as an assistant coach here. We won 3 Big Ten titles, so knowing what worked already, what kind of kids we need to recruit to our culture, what kind of areas of the country we're going to recruit, and more than that, from a structural side that the players don't see, is developing a support network to help us reach our dreams, to build new facilities and fundraise for the things we needed to do to help our kids get an advantage. The second part of the question, one of the things that's most challenging about this job now is the scheduling. We don't talk about it publicly very often. Laying out a schedule that balances all things we need to balance now. We need to play competitively against the top teams in the country. We need to manage academic issues as far as how long we're gone. Our guys miss a lot of class. Obviously, we have limits there, but golf tournaments are 4 days long usually. That's a lot of missed class days. So, and then also with the rule we have in college golf, where it's pretty much like basketball. There's an at-large selection if you don't win your league, and you got to balance playing a competitive schedule, but also playing a schedule where your kids can grow and win and learn. And so, if there's one area of the job that I'm still learning, I think we're all learning because it's constantly in flux, it's the scheduling piece.
How much of a say do you have in the scheduling piece?
Pretty much the whole deal.
Yeah.
Obviously there's certain things we like to do, especially if we have connections in an area or kids feel comfortable in an area. We like to play in the Midwest when we can. I don't have a lot of control over the weather, so that's one area I cede some control. But as we lay out pretty much a 9-month schedule, we go from first weekend September to hopefully the first weekend June. It's balancing all those things and making sure that I can put our kids in a situation where they're going to get great competition, but they're also going to get to experience what being a part of a college golf team is. And we get to see a lot of parts of the world, which is cool.
During your time as a player, you mentioned that you were Walkon, and then I think a year later you became the number one golfer for the team. Do you have a favorite tournament or a favorite story or memory from your playing days at Michigan State?
Oh, there's a lot of them. You get so close with the guys that you play with. I think a major highlight for me is we were, after many years, I would say, of being a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team, we were starting to move up the ladder. And my second semester, which was fall of 2002, our coach put this crazy idea in front of us, and he didn't really tell us about it until it was already decided, but we were going to go play University of Michigan's event, and then we're going to fly directly from there and play in Rhode Island in an event. Generally, you play an event, then you come home, and you get 3 or 4 days or 5 days, whatever it is, to get back on the road. So we played at Michigan's event. We had a crazy finish there. We were leading by a lot. Find a way to squeak it out. We won, and now we're late for our flight. To get to Rhode Island. And if we didn't get to Rhode Island that night, we're going to be at a big disadvantage. So without breaking too many traffic laws and keeping us safe, our coach hurried us straight from there to the airport. We made it by, a minute at tops. Got our bags on the plane, flew to Rhode Island, won that event coming from about 10 shots behind the last day. And we didn't even have a chance to celebrate because we had to catch the flight home now. So he picked us up in the middle of the course in a van. And we piled in the van, and it wasn't until we were just about to leave Rhode Island and fly home we knew we won that event. So those weird things that happen with your team and your coach, and you think about what a personal business we're in. This is win, lose. This is very personal, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it.
Now that'd be quite the highlight for your playing career. But on the flip side of that, for your coaching career, same question: do you have a favorite tournament or memory as a coach so far?
They're all special. Every time you win, we've been lucky to win at least once in my 4 years here. And sometimes winning means you're ahead and you got to hold on to the lead, and that's a totally different feeling. Sometimes we come from behind. I think one of the real special things for me is that first year I was here, we had finished maybe 10th or 11th in the league the last couple of years before that. And Chris Morey, a senior from the area at the time, he's now a golf teacher up at Hawk Hollow Eagle Eye. He had given a speech to the team. Usually the night before a round, we gather in the hotel room, we go over how we're going to play the course, and the coach gives the speech, and we move on. And Chris Morey, such a great Spartan and a very quiet young man, he sat in the hotel room and tears came to his eyes, and he said, I want this program to be where it belongs, at the top of the league, and I want us to be relevant again. And I think we're going to do something special. And for some reason, sometimes speeches resonate, sometimes they don't. That one resonated. And 27 holes into my first Big Ten championship, we had a 15-shot lead. We were huge, huge underdogs, and we ended up contending all weekend. We slipped to fourth in the last 9 holes, but I think that was a moment for me that said, this is what these kids want to do. This is where they think Michigan State belongs. Now it's my job to help them get there on a more consistent basis. So I think those are the little things you remember. Obviously, winning is great, and some of the great individual wins we've had. But that was a highlight for me getting started.
Who has had the biggest impact in your life, whether they were a coach or a teammate or a player that you have currently in your entire MSU career that has had the biggest positive impact on you?
Yeah, I have a lot of mentors outside of coaching. Some guys that have kind of taken me under their wing since I was 15, 16, 17 years old. But when you talk about coaching, I've been blessed to work alongside one of the best coaches in the country, Casey Lubahn, still our women's coach. I mean, her record speaks for itself. But what people don't know about Stacey is that she's an incredibly caring and passionate person, and she's got an edge to her, as all great coaches do, but she's always been there for me when things were rough. So it's been nice to walk into this situation. We're a big family in Michigan State Golf. We don't consider the men's program separate from the women's program, other than we play a different schedule. We're very much together. So she's been a huge mentor. And then obviously the coach I played for while I was here. You think about the direction of my life when he allowed me to walk onto the team. Think about how my life changed. I became a college golf coach. I'm in my dream job now. My wife played on the team at Michigan State. We met, practicing and getting to know each other at Forest Acres. All the things that changed because of the generosity he extended to me, offering me a spot on the team. So those two people have been with me since the beginning, and I hope they'll be with me till the end.
Speaking of the beginning, you've been on campus at Michigan State since the early 2000s. In your opinion, what's changed the most about Michigan State, whether it's the campus or a program or something like that?
I think we've done such a good job of, one, Mark Hollis is a genius, in my estimation, not because of all the great ideas and playing a basketball game in an aircraft carrier and all the things he's done, but because Mark Hollis truly treasures and cherishes his coaches, and he treats us that way. When we win, when we have success, that's my favorite part, is I get to go back to a guy that I respect and admire so much and say, hey, thanks for giving me this chance. This is what we just did. So he's really defined what Michigan State's about. We have 19 head coaches in this department, a lot of assistant coaches, and some of the best administrators in the country, and a lot of them feel like this is the ultimate destination. And that's certainly a different feeling than I had when I was here before. The Jake Bosses, the Tom Izzos, the Mark D'Antonios, the Tom Anastas's. Those are our most vocal guys and visible guys, but everybody feels that way, from women's tennis to rowing, and it's just an incredible group of people who see Michigan State as the dream job.
Now, have you golfed with any of the other coaches at Michigan State before?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah? Who would you say is the best golfer, and maybe who's the worst?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll take Stacey out of the equation, obviously, because that's what she does. But, Coach Izzo's a good player, a competitive player. Jake Boss played some college golf. People don't know that about Jake. He walked onto the Alma College team and played a semester of college golf, so he's probably in that discussion. I'm working hard on Coach D'Antonio to get him play a little more. I've been telling him for years. We joke about him as personal coach, but he's never been out for a lesson. So on the Damon Rensing's a good player. So on the other side of it, Tom Anastas, he won't even challenge this. I always say hockey players are usually great golfers. Tom Anastas is not on that list, but he's fun to play with, let me tell you.
So when you're in East Lansing and you're feeling hungry, what's your favorite place to grab a meal at?
Oh, man, good question. They're changing so fast. I used to be a huge Flats grill guy. Now I'm kind of assimilating with everybody, and I'm a Chipotle guy, but my all-time favorite restaurant 3 times a week is Woody's Oasis. Jake Boss and I, one of the things about being a head coach is kind of a lonely job. You got your wife, but you don't want to bring your work home all the time, and you got your assistant coach, but they work for you, so sometimes there's conversations that are off the even out of that relationship. So Jake and he's become my mentor and best friend in town, and Woody's Oasis is kind of the place where we go, and and just talk about what's going on, kind of confide in each other and pick each other up when we're down and celebrate when we win. So, yeah, that's kind of my spot.
What is the hardest shot in golf to master, and then what's the hardest shot in golf to teach?
Oh boy, the hardest shot to master, in my opinion, it depends on varying skill levels. But there's a fairway bunker shot for a great player from about 50 to 110 yards. That's pretty hard. You got to be really precise, and something that you just don't get a lot of practice with. So very, very good hand-eye coordination people can get away with less than perfect technique in those shots, but unless you have superb hand-eye coordination, you really got to have good fundamentals. Hardest shot to teach, for me, when I'm out, I'm going to do a lot of corporate events and fundraising events, is getting people to understand how to swing fast without swinging hard. Everybody wants to swing hard. They want to hit it far. That's the fun part. Really good players, and even guys that are my size. I'm barely 5'7". If you can swing fast, you can hit it far. So, but confusing those two is difficult for most people.
Did you have a favorite golfer growing up, and who do you like to watch now?
Yeah, I did. I was a big fan of Fred Couples, who's still playing the Champions Tour. I think he was the complete opposite of me in how I play. Very high strung, show a lot of emotion, hard on my sleeve kind of guy. And he was just kind of always rolling up his sleeves and being real relaxed out there. So that's who I watched a lot growing up. As my kind of my most fond memories. Right now, it's a difficult cycle for people of my generation, about my age. Tiger was, when he came out, when we started watching him, the world hadn't seen anything like it. And to this day, if he gets in contention this weekend at the U.S. Open, that's what I'm going to be on the couch. Hopefully I'll find a couch, but that's who I'm going to be watching. He's still the greatest player that I think we've ever seen. It just hurts to watch him struggle like this. And never in the history of any sport that I know of has one person been so integral to an entire game. When he came out, the game grew with popularity in golf courses, and as he's on his decline, so is our game. So he's extremely important.
Out of all the golf courses you've played on, what's your favorite one and why? And then, is there a golf course out there that you haven't got to yet but you'd love to?
Oh yeah, there's lots of those. I'm a kind of a golf course architecture junkie, nerd, however you want to. I like to study it. My favorite golf course in the world is in Michigan. It's in Frankfort, Michigan. It's called Crystal Downs Country Club. It's one of those places when you walk out, you get a different feeling. You know it's special. It's ranked about 12th in the country. But then there's, two others that San Francisco Golf Club, very elite club out there. And then I just got back from Chicago Golf Club. I'm a big fan of golf courses that are 100 years old that have stood the test of time. And they're all a little hard to get on. But as far as courses I'm looking to play in the future, obviously, I want to play Augusta. I've had a couple chances, so I'm hoping I'll get that done soon. And then, we're going to Pebble Beach next week for an event, so I'm hoping to play Cypress Point while I'm there.
You mentioned that you study golf courses. How much of that do you do before your team plays there? Do you let them know kind of like what hole is tricky and what one they can get on easier?
Yeah, definitely. We have, so with the technology now, we used to have to, kind of like you used to share game tapes in basketball or football. We used to have to share yardage books across coaches and, kind of get some local knowledge that way. Now with Google Earth, we can go in and take satellite images of each hole, measure exactly how far all the bunkers and trees and water and everything is, and then the kids can actually go in and kind of study a hole almost from that vantage point before they even get there. Sometimes we like them to go in a little more fresh so they don't get any preset expectations about a golf course, but my assistant coach, who's a bit nutty about this, he'll know every hole, every shot before we get there, and as we go through a round, make sure the players are learning on the fly, because that's the most important day of our week is the practice round. If we go to a place we haven't been, we'll go in the night before, we'll spend the whole day getting ready on the golf course. They got one day to get ready, so those are the hardest days of the year for us.
How much time do you spend on recruiting, and when you are recruiting, what traits do you look for in players? What are the physical traits you look for? What are the mental traits? What makes the perfect Spartan for you?
Yeah, so I think with everything you try and articulate what that means. We kind of have always looked at 5 things. One, do they have the character? We spend a lot of time with supporters, a lot of time with alumni. Golfers are generally visible as they're out in the community a lot. So they got to have the character that's non-negotiable, that's going to represent us in the best possible manner. Next, we talked about how many classes we miss. They got to be able to do the academic work. Now, most of that time, that means they got good grades, but sometimes it means they got good habits more than good grades. So they got to have character, they got to have academics, then you start getting into the golf piece. If they have good national tournament experience, they've been playing against the country's best, that's obviously optimal. If they don't have that, then the 4th category is, do they have the potential to grow into that? A lot of kids, even in the Midwest, still are underexposed a little bit, so we're kind of looking for diamonds in the rough. And then lastly, and this always comes down to it, what kind of love do they have for the institution? I think we talked about 19 head coaches and all these administrators and who love this place. Your players got to love it too. So there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, most certainly. A love of the institution kind of gets the kids through that. From a physical standpoint, there's one thing I can't teach. That's speed. Can't teach speed. So a lot of times that shows up in bigger guys. Most of our team is between 6'2" and 6'7". They hit it far.
Wow.
That's easier to gain speed at those heights. But there's some guys my size who hit it real far too. So the biggest thing we look for in recruiting is how they handle adversity. When we watch kids shoot 68, that's great. We know he can shoot good scores. When we watch him shoot 80 and he handles it with class and integrity, that's even more powerful.
What can fans expect for the 2015 season? Who will be some golfers that stand out, and who might be ready to break out?
Yeah, I think this is, I think I put a little too much expectation on this team. We started over last year with 7 freshmen out of 10 or 11 guys. Big time learning curve. And they came a little ways last year. Then this year we came a long ways. We just didn't get over that hump and get in the NCAA tournament. And we struggled the last 9 holes of Big Tens. But this group's going to return 4 of the top 25 players in the league. When you talk about 75 ranked players in the Big Ten, it's pretty good. When we count 4 scores every day, your top 4 players are all in the top 25 coming back. Mitch Rutledge will be our senior. He's kind of been through it all now. He knows what to expect. And then Gareth Lappin and Charlie Netzel and Sam Weatherhead, they're all had moments where they've been elite and moments where they've been average. So we're hoping those 4 continue to grow, and then we're going to have at least 4 players behind them. I think they're going to compete week in, week out for a spot. We never know what to expect until we get into it, but this is a team that should be in the top 30, 40, 50 in the country or higher, and contending at Big Tens when we get to April.
Now, the saying goes, a bad day on the golf course beats a good day at work. So is it possible for you to have a bad day at work?
Not really. I mean, like anybody, you get tired of doing the same thing, and even if that means playing golf every day. But I haven't worked a day in my life is how I kind of see it, and to work at this place at this time with these people. We were just at a head coach's retreat, and they're friends and they're mentors and they're colleagues. But when you look at Mark D'Antonio and Tom Izzo, I just don't see this at other institutions where we get to interact on a frequent basis with guys who are so elite, have been so successful, yet remain so humble. So you combine what I get to do and where I get to do it. This is the dream.
I think it's pretty safe to say that you have a pretty good gig. Well, Coach Lubahn, thanks for joining us on the Coaches Series. It's been a pleasure to have you on. We look forward to seeing what's in store for the men's golf team. From SSN 24/7, I'd like to thank our producer, Rob Bennett, for helping set up the board. And for Spartan Sports Network, I'm Seth Newman. Go Green.